Hello, everybody. We're going to finish out the week with a general election poll from Fox News. We're also going to get an updated status of Trump's VP selection. But first, we're going to take a look at this poll out of Minnesota. And this is from Survey USA. We also took a look at this about a month ago. The headline is Hush Money Trial Leaves No Impact on Presidential Race. Let's get down into it. After a solid month of mostly negative and occasionally salacious testimony, the race remains a virtual dead heat. So the dead heat is 44 for Biden, 42 for Trump. That is the same as it was in the previous poll. So nobody even at 45% in this poll. Now, do I expect this to actually be super competitive? Not exactly. But due to the narrow polling and the margin back in 2016, it's a state we can take a look at from time to time, even though it is not one of the battlegrounds. So this survey sampled 39% Democrats, 35% Republicans, 22% independents. And I'd like to see some other pollsters get in on Minnesota. My expectation is in the end, there's enough voters there that are not exactly enthusiastic for Biden, but when the election rolls around, they're going to end up supporting him. Here they talk about what would happen if Trump is convicted in his trial. It says they asked registered and likely voters who their support would shift to if he's found guilty. 88% would still vote Trump, 0 would go to Biden, and 5% would consider shifting to another candidate. And of course, although that number is small, it could have a big impact on a very tight race. So this survey was conducted May 8th to the 11th. It started with 825 adults. They got it down to 710 registered voters, and then down to 625 likely voters. And the research was conducted online. And then down here, I like that they put the crosstabs on the same page. So this is Minnesota. It's a moderately blue state, but we've seen some polling that shows it close. The last rating I had was still likely for Biden at about 5 points. I've heard people say it is actually getting competitive this time. I've heard people say it's not getting competitive. It's not a crucial state, but I would be stunned if it actually got extremely competitive. In the previous video I did on this poll, I did look at Survey USA's polling history. They've got some hits and misses, but back in 16, like with most states, the polling here was way off. So we're going to have to see if anything develops there, but let's move on to this Fox News general election poll. The subheadline is Biden's approval is highest since January of 23 as more voters are bullish on the economy. That could be a good sign for Biden. Let's go down into the data. So in the head-to-head matchup, we've got Trump up by 1 point, 49 to 48. That's down from the previous poll where he was up 50 to 45. Trump has led in every poll since last October, but maybe things are changing as we head more into election season. Now in a five-way race, then Trump is at 43, Biden is at 40, Kennedy is at 11%. And if you look at his trajectory, it has been downward over the past 6 months, slowly eroding every month. Jill Stein and Cornel West are at 2%. Who does Kennedy hurt more, Biden or Trump? I think that might make the assumption that no voters are going to come out just to vote for Kennedy and not anybody else. Then they go into some demographic shifts. Let's go down to the table. So the top lines are from this poll. The lighter blue lines on the bottom, those are from a poll back in October of 20. Now all these groups are key to the Biden coalition, but with black voters, you can see that it's dropped sharply down to 72%. That doesn't mean Trump is going to get 28% of that vote. I think that's out of the question, but it does go to show you that there is a lot of soft support there for Biden. Hispanic voters, it's down slightly to 55. Suburban voters, another big drop down to 54. Same with moderates, down to 53. And under age 30 has the biggest drop, that's down to 49. What about Trump? Well, I wish they included a table, but he's up 25 with rural voters, whites without a college degree, also plus 25, and white evangelical Christians plus 44. Then they mention new voters, and those are defined as voters who have not voted in the 4 most recent general elections. In a two-way race, Trump leads by 2, 50 to 48. In a three-way race, Trump also leads by 2, 41 to 39, Kennedy at 13. In the expanded ballot, Trump holds on to 87% of his 2020 voters. Biden is at 80%. Independents break for Trump by 2 points. Now, what about the voters that hate both Biden and Trump? Well, in 2020, only 6% had an unfavorable view of both, but they backed Biden by 17. This time, 13% hate both of them, and they again break toward Biden by 11, 48 to 37. Now, that's despite 87% of them disapproving of the job he's doing, and 78% saying the economy is getting worse. In March, they preferred Biden by 2. In February, they preferred Trump by 3. And then it even says savvy survey readers know it's normal for results to vary among small subgroups. That's obviously true, except this time, if they're breaking for Biden by 11 points, that could be a sign that there's voters out there that don't care for him, but they're going to end up supporting him anyway. How about the favorability ratings? Well, Trump is at 46 favorable, 53 unfavorable. For whatever reason, they did not put the numbers on this chart, but above it says he's at 44 favorable, 56 unfavorable. And then down here we've got the top issues. Biden leads on 3 of them: abortion, healthcare, and election integrity. I'm actually a little surprised to see him ahead by only 8 on abortion. But these 3 issues on the left side are going to be the ones his campaign is going to play up. Energy policy is about even. Then on the right side, there's 3 or 4 here that are going to favor Trump. Foreign policy, but especially crime, the economy, and immigration. So there's definitely plenty of material here for each side. And then they talk about the state of the economy. 70% view it negatively, 30% view it positively, yet those are the highest numbers in nearly 3 years. Among lower income households, 71% say grocery prices are a major problem. That's up from the previous 2 years. But then we've got Biden's approval rating on specific issues. Overall, it's up to 45. On the economy, it's at 40. Inflation, 34. Border security, 33. And the Israel-Hamas war, it's at 32. Then we've got a familiar table down here that asks, is your vote for Biden and Trump for or against that candidate? For Biden voters, it's split. 51% are for Biden, 48% are against Trump. For Trump voters, 71% are for Trump, 29% are against Biden. And this next part I think is key. It says it's too soon to talk about likely voters. Most people start thinking about the election much closer to Election Day. Check back after Labor Day. That's true. It doesn't really matter what happens in March, May, or even July. Things could stay the same, but they could also change. And the polls could end up being off in one direction or the other. We've all seen it happen over the past several elections. There's a few more things here, but the last thing I'm going to point out is when it comes to presidential debates, how important is it that Biden and Trump debate? 41% say extremely. Only 20% say not at all. And then I like how they ask how important it is that RFK Jr. be included. 23% say very, but 29% say not at all. So I think there's some concern on both sides that RFK could take votes from their candidate. So I'm not a fan of it, but we frequently see the third parties get excluded. Now you got to draw the line somewhere. You can't include everybody. Big Kennedy, even though he's getting hit from all sides, it does look like he has enough support to be taken seriously. So that's the Fox News poll. Let's move on to Trump's VP pick. This says it looks like he's going to announce at the convention in July. So that's going to be in a couple of months in Milwaukee. And I think it's good to get a ticket locked in. However, the longer he waits, probably the better. We saw Kristi Noem recently take a major hit with the dog story. So more time allows for more vetting and more scrutiny. And whoever he picks, we've already got Kamala Harris, who says she's ready to go. It's good to see some debates already on the calendar. We saw Trump and Biden setting one up for next month as well. But I think the only reason everybody actually wants to debate is because nobody feels safe. For this debate, I think Harris is relatively weak. She could use this as an opportunity to reinvent herself with the public. For Trump's pick, it's going to be an opportunity to introduce herself to voters for the first time. So both sides have something to gain here as well as something to lose if they end up flopping. But who are the current frontrunners for Trump's running mate? Well, if we get unpredicted, we've got Tim Scott at the top. It's not by a wide margin, but Scott has maintained his status as one of the frontrunners for a long time. He's the guy I thought Trump would be most likely to pick back in the fall. Scott, I think, is the safe choice. He's friendly enough with the establishment. He comes off as a real nice guy, super sincere, and he could help shore up some support with black voters. He's not from an important state, but he already planned to not run for re-election in the Senate. So for me, he does seem to check enough of the boxes that would help Trump the most. Behind him, we've got Doug Burgum, governor of North Dakota. To me, I think Burgum kind of came out of nowhere. I don't really think he offers much to the ticket. He is wealthy, he has executive experience, and he's not at all going to steal the spotlight from Trump. It sounds similar to Mike Pence. So while that might not necessarily be a negative for Trump, the lack of any kind of exciting positive could be an issue. So I would be surprised if Burgum was selected, although I was surprised when he picked Pence. Third place, we do have J.D. Vance, and Vance has risen up over the past month. He is from Ohio. Maybe that helps Trump shore up some support in some of the other Rust Belt states, but he's a freshman senator and he's still currently under age 40. I don't think a broad range of voters are going to think he's prepared enough to step into the presidential role. Next, we've got Marco Rubio. Rubio, I don't think is a bad pick. He's from the same state as Trump, but I think he might be enough of a bridge between the Trump base and the establishment, and of course he could help nationally with Hispanic voters. But Rubio is currently in the Senate, but there's always a risk that there could be a special election, and Democrats could be motivated to pick this seat up. Then fifth, we've got Elise Stefanik. I don't think she's likely to be picked. She's only in the U.S. House. I just don't think her profile is high enough. But if the aim is to go for suburban women, I suppose she would probably do a better job than someone like Doug Burgum. She's also pretty young. That could be another negative. So I never thought Stefanik was likely to be picked, but she has been in the running for a long time now. Maybe the abortion issue is such a big deal that she ends up being picked. There's other candidates on here. Sarah Sanders, I think she's very unlikely to be picked. Ramaswamy, I've also thought is unlikely. He's too young, he's too much like Trump, and even though I think he's a solid communicator, personality-wise he might come off as just a little bit annoying or maybe even a little smug, I think he could be picked for the cabinet or maybe he could run for future office. Tulsi Gabbard looks like she she sank over the past month, I think she would have made much more sense being RFK's pick. I do think there's a segment of anti-establishment and younger voters who are more online that would be into Tulsi. She could bring over some independents, disaffected voters, maybe a few Democrats, but there also could be some skepticism among hardcore conservatives. And if you want more of a full list of the potential candidates, here's one from NBC News. This has the pros and cons of each side, and I know balancing out the ticket is a major factor for presidential candidates, either with ideology, geography, or identity. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's subtle, but I think the VP pick here could be a make or break decision. We already saw Kristi Noem crash and burn. Even though previously I thought she was not a good pick, she just reminded me too much of Sarah Palin. So who knows which direction Trump is going to go in? I assume he's likely to bridge the gap a little bit with the establishment. If he goes with a completely out-of-the-box pick just like himself, it's possible that does fire up his base and put him over the top, but I tend to think that's less likely. A lot of times the running mate just fades into the background, but I would think Trump knows that there's a lot on the line here with this pick, and if he picks a dud, that could drag him down. So that's kind of where things are at. I'm going to leave it there for now. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about any of these stories? How about another poll out of Minnesota showing it competitive? Is it true, or is Biden going to surge ahead as we get closer? And what about the Fox News general election poll? Is the economy improving? Is Trump actually going to be ahead in the national popular vote? Which issues are going to help each side? And what about the VP pick? Who do you think it's going to be? Who do you think it's definitely not going to be? How do you think they would help the ticket? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe and join if you'd like to help support the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.